Dracula!
What's up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Rat2501 here. Alright, got another Warhammer video for you. Alright, this is from Commissar Gamza again, so we had to say goodbye to text-to-speech and Brava Alpha Busa. He did put in the comments that he might start it up again if Games Workshop stops being an asshole, but considering that is about as likely as, you know, them getting a brain and not screwing over their, a company not screwing over its fan base, well, you know, you do the math. Anyway, so this is from Commissar Gamza. This is Could Necromorphs Survive Warhammer 40k? I'm going to probably do some backlog stuff from him because I like a lot of his stuff, but then I might not do so much because most of his videos lately have just been talking about the Games Workshop situation. Anyway, so let's get this one done and let's see what he's got for us. This is Could Necromorphs Survive Warhammer 40k? For a bit. I'm not sure how the artifact would affect things. Let's go.
Oh, why, hello there, everybody, and welcome to this video. So today we're going to be asking the question, could the Necromorphs from Dead Space survive in a
Warhammer 40k universe?
Alright, now the reason why I'm making this video here today, number one is to make money, but number two, because you guys have probably requested this video quite a bit, including Dante from Devil May Cry, which will be coming out here pretty soon. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the Necromorphs, but first let's ask Buttermilk Bob, a 40k fanboy, what he thinks. Could the Necromorphs survive in Warhammer 40k?
No, he can survive Warhammer.
Damn you, Gamza!
How many times do I have to tell you, you son of a bitch? Nothing survives Warhammer 40k, and I've got just one word for your stupid ass, and that is exterminatus.
You guys smell that? Smells like fear. You see, every single time a fanboy from 40k brings up the exterminatus, that's when you know he's desperate as shit because he ain't got anything else to answer for it. So his only option is to go full Allah Akbar on his own planet and blow it up. You ain't got nothing.
Dude,
now, for you overweight neckbeards out there that have played Dead Space a dozen times, I'm going to let you know this right now, okay? I've never finished a Dead Space game before. Why? Was it because I was too much of a sissy? Nah, it's actually because I didn't have time for it. But as a YouTuber, that automatically gives me the credentials to call myself an expert on Dead Space. So I want you neckbeards to watch this video very closely because there's nothing more that you like better than to feel important by pointing out a single, like, 10-second clip out of the entirety of a 30-minute video to tell me that I'm wrong about it, to give you a little bit of a confidence boost. But fear not, because Gamza's got your back. I'm going to give you plenty of confidence boost in this video. Now, this is a little bit of an annoying thing to explain here, but let me see if I can get this correctly, accurately, and precisely and quickly. So number one, you have these things called brother moons. These are giant meatballs that fly through space. They create something that are called markers, and they shit them out. They fly through space. They land on a planet, and then these markers, in my opinion, I don't think it's really been told this way, but I think they are like antennas that are connected like psychically or through some interdimensional connection to the brother moons, and the brother moons act as the intelligence for the marker. The marker essentially is a very advanced piece of technology that is capable of altering the DNA of the surrounding species on a planet, to which then it forces it to go through evolution to create an intelligent species. Once it creates an intelligent species, it starts turning them into necromorphs and then breaking down the whole society for whatever reason, just because, I guess, because creepy, that's why. And then, after these necromorphs are being created and rewired, the necromorphs go out there and then they start killing other species and turning them into additional necromorphs. So there's two ways that you can be turned into a necromorph. The marker rewires your DNA, corrupts you, and turns you into a necromorph, or another necromorph that has already been established goes out there and chops your pee-pee off, and then you turn into a necromorph yourself, and then the cycle continues. Wait a second, if a necromorph chops your pee-pee off, does that make you a trans? A trans necromorph.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
Oh, okay,
Alright, so once the planet is basically taken over and everybody's running around as a trans necromorph, then the marker starts sending out like free Wi-Fi, and all the necromorphs are like, shit, free Wi-Fi, I don't have to pay for internet. So they all start congregating to one single area, and just like in a communist wet dream, all these people merge together into one giant spaghetti meatball, which becomes a brother moon. So it's like there's no such thing as an individual anymore. All you just become a giant lump of flesh to create the communist dream, a brother moon, to which the brother moon then like eats the atmosphere, leaves the planet, becomes a floating spaghetti monster, and then starts sending out more marker technology, beacon, whatever things to create more brother moons in the future should they land on a planet that actually has a species that could be forced through evolution, to which the cycle completes again. And then we have the chicken and the egg problem. Which one came first, the marker or the brother moon? Well, you can't have a marker unless you actually have a brother moon that created it. So my theory is simply that a brother moon was created first through whatever crazy known means, and then it started shitting out markers, and thus Dead Space. All right, now let's talk about the necromorphs a little bit more. Now there are so many different necromorphs, and they work a little bit differently. So let's just put it this way: the marker doesn't infect you with anything. It sends out like psychic waves or some type of signal that actually rewrites your DNA. So it acts quite funky. So if you have like a resistance to infections or diseases, that's not going to save you from the marker, because the marker itself is actually changing your DNA itself. Now, the necromorphs, however, do carry an infectious type of disease or whatever. So that way, like, let's say you had it underneath your nails and you went to scratch your ass. Well, you're a necromorph now, okay? So, or if they come up to you and they stab you in the pee-pee, again, you are now a necromorph. Now, the type of necromorph that you will be turned into, we don't really know, because there's just so many variants of them. There's exactly 3.5 billion different types of necromorphs. I know because I'm a YouTube expert and I've counted every single one of them. So, like, if you're a little baby and you get stabbed by a necromorph, or your mommy gets stabbed by a necromorph while you're floating around inside her womb, you're probably going to turn into like a spider baby. And if you are a normal woman, you get turned into something far more grotesque, which is a feminist. So from tiny little spider babies all the way up to massive leviathan beasts that are like the hive mind, the tormentor. These are huge monstrous creatures that are capable of absorbing a tremendous amount of punishment, and also they show a sign of intelligence like the hive mind, which is able to control other ones around it. So these things are very diverse. It's almost like whatever you can just make up, whatever chaos, monstrosity, flesh mutant that you can come up with. The necromorphs can basically create. So you're talking about, again, things that can handle ground troops to things that can shred tanks apart, no problem. Now, there is one thing that I want to talk about very briefly here before we throw these guys into the Warhammer 40k universe, and that is the markers are capable of not only influencing other people's DNA, but also influencing their mind. Like giving you visions to drive you mad, or at the same time it can feed you information and knowledge on how to create additional markers to ensure its survival and success in creating another brother moon. At the same time, the marker has been able to influence people around it to ensure its own safety. So if someone's trying to destroy the marker, which can happen, but the thing is also pretty tough, so it can take quite a bit before it gets destroyed, but regardless, it can still manipulate people around it to help protect it, to again ensure like survival, which again is why I theorize it's more of like an antenna that the brother moon is transferring his conscious through to control everything, so that way he's the one that's kind of dictating what's going to happen next. Just a theory, so be it. Alright, let's go ahead and take a marker from Dead Space and throw it into the 41st millennium. Now, one thing to note here is that markers can actually lay dormant on planets for millions of years, so it's quite plausible that one has been sitting in the Milky Way galaxy for some time now. Okay, so let's go ahead and speculate with different types of factions. Let's start off with the Eldar. I think the Eldar would largely be able to sense the danger that comes from this, and they would likely try to destroy it. But I like the idea of at least one Eldar going against the crowd, because he's already being influenced, most likely a dark Eldar, sent fake visions through this marker to actually help it. Because, like, again, these markers are able to manipulate people and send them visions. Eldar are all about peering into the future, looking through the warp, you know, going through all these twisting nethers to try to find out what's going to unfold in the future. But if you have an Eldar that's trying to peer through the future, and let's say some of them are sensing the danger from this marker, but one Eldar is being sent visions of, let's say, prosperity, and he begins to use this marker, that's one way that necromorphs can start off against the Eldar. I don't know what kind of crazy monstrosity you would get out of Eldar necromorphs, but I think it would actually be pretty cool. Although I'm not sure if the threat would grow big enough to actually threaten the Eldar, because they are the dying race already. So it's not like you've just got these tens of millions of Eldar just waiting around to be consumed and turned into necromorphs. They're very skittish rats, and you know, at the sign of danger, they run away like the gay sissies that they are. However, it could still easily be a way for the necromorphs to get started and then start invading other worlds. worlds. Now, to talk about the Tau, I think the Tau would probably get corrupted pretty quickly because they could see this as a new source of energy, and when you are already struggling against like the Orcs and Tyranids, you could probably use any help that you could get, and they're going to see this marker going, well, we don't know what this ancient technology is, but if it's going to give us an energy source, why not use it? So, oh, this is a good energy source. Oops, I'll turn into a Necromorph. And this is where we run into a bit of a wild card here. So imagine this. The Tau Empire is struggling with all these Necromorphs. They're fighting them off. And because of this, the Orcs begin to push further into their territory. And then an Orc Wa lands on one of these Tau Empire planets. And it's infested with nothing but Necromorphs and different markers on there. Then you're going to have these markers that are going to start influencing and corrupting the Orcs themselves. I could see this turning into total chaos. But if the Orcs get turned into Necromorphs, there's no telling what kind of crazy monstrosities are going to come from this. And there's no situation that I can see where the Orcs would not be corrupted by the Necromorphs, because they're going to see these giant Spidey boys running around with claws and stuff, and the Orcs are going to be like, oh, now this looks fun. They're going to be jumping into the shit like a mosh pit. Then the Orc gets chopped up to bits, and then he comes back as a Necromorph. That is if the infection can affect an Orc. And let's say that it cannot. We can also just say that the markers themselves can rewrite the DNA of the Orcs to allow them to be infected. And thus, it takes us off into the next faction that everybody wants to talk about,
The Tyranids! Oh, Gamza, they have rapid evolution. They could never be turned into necromorphs. Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
that
okay,
is a
so
possibility.
Here's the thing. I actually think that the Tyranids overall would probably be very resistant to the infection from the Necromorphs. Because
he tries to rewrite their DNA, they rewrite it back.
Largely symbiotic relationships. So like the guns on a Tyranid, they're not actually like a part of his body, so to speak. Those are normally like symbiotic relationships. It's multiple creatures put together to create a single Tyranid. So kind of infecting one organism doesn't mean that you're automatically going to infect the other organism as well, which makes it more resistant, I would say, to getting a simple infection and turning into a Necromorph. However, the dangerous part is the markers can rewrite your DNA, which means it can affect the overall collective that comprises of a single Tyranid to begin with. So that makes it very dangerous. Now here's another wild card that we can kind of debate here a bit, and that is the hive mind versus the signals that a marker sends out. Now the hive mind has something that's called the shadow in the warp. This thing allows it to normally interfere or shut off entire communications, different types of signals, and psychic powers as well. There's no guarantee that it's going to affect the markers or stop it outright. The shadow in the warp is not a guarantee to cut off all communications and all signals.
But
normally it just simply interferes
with
things and makes it a lot more difficult. I think if there's enough markers on a given planet,
it
can definitely bypass that hive mind and basically begin to affect the Tyranids. Now here's a very dangerous part that I want to throw out there. Once again, because the markers can rewrite your DNA, I wonder if they would be able to modify a Tyranid so that way that individual Tyranid can no longer receive a signal from the hive mind itself. So Tyranids are designed to have a synapse where they're able to pick up the hive signal and they're being controlled by it. Because the marker is able to display intelligence, it can reroute strategies, it can do different types of things to try to protect itself. If it sees that the hive mind is a big threat to itself, why couldn't it begin to modify the DNA of Tyranids and start turning off that receiving signal and then start turning them into necromorphs? That's just one way that I can think about it. I think it's an interesting topic to discuss a little bit further. Regardless, whoever wins that battle, we basically lose it. Now, the next faction to talk about are the Necrons. I don't think the Necrons would have any problems with the Necromorphs, really, unless it was a giant force of Necromorphs that were invading them. Then sure, I think the Necromorphs could, mess up the Necrons a bit. But when it comes to the overall war, the Necrons are not going to be corrupted by the Necromorphs. They're not going to be influenced as far as I can tell, because it's not like they have neurons firing up and down. They don't have a nervous system. There's nothing to corrupt. There's no DNA to change. There's none of that stuff. So on this one, I think the Necrons are actually the perfect counter to the Necromorphs. And this is going to end with the Nightbringer breakdancing on top of a marker as it's sending out signals and sweating because it can't do anything. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Imperium of Bad. So this is going to be very bad for humanity. Number one, the Imperium of Man is huge. They can barely protect their own territories. They're always trying to expand, and there's a lot of
I can't
territories
even go over
within
what
their
he's
own
talking
control
about, man. That is just
they
so,
actually don't
oh
have
my
full
God,
control
that's so
of. It's a little
horrible.
funky, but think of it like this way. They're taking so much ground that they're not paying too much attention to what's behind them, and so things behind them can overall get corrupted, and the response times aren't as fast because the Imperium is desperately trying to take ground instead of constantly losing ground. But in the end, things get corrupted behind them, which is also why you have the Inquisition. But then this goes off into another thing where if a marker is able to influence and get hold of an Inquisitor, he can get a lot more done and bypass a lot of the security in the Imperium itself. So a little bit of a funky thing here. The other wild card that I'm going to throw in here is the Mechanicus. If the Mechanicus comes across a marker and he's being fed, you know, like visions and stuff from the marker, he's going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm getting visions from the Omnissiah, you know, and then not to mention the marker is a source of vast energy. I can see the Mechanicus, you know, trying to grab it and hoard it for himself when he's in like some dark cave whispering to it, oh yes, I'll do whatever you ask, my pretty, and then he's going to start building even more markers. It's going to be chaos when it comes to the Imperium of Man. Now, when it comes to the Space Marines, once again, I don't think the infection is going to work on them too quickly. I think they'd probably be a little bit more resistant to it. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt here. However, once again, we can go right back to the default rewriting of DNA, and if there's enough markers to do that, I think it can probably start slowly infecting the Space Marines. But then again, it doesn't matter, because what is 1,000 Space Marines compared to like 1 billion Necromorphs? You're going to lose that battle. Alright, so let's go ahead and end this video with the final big bad boy wild card, and that's going to be Chaos, and specifically Nurgle, that would be looking at the Necromorphs disease spreading around, turning into more Necromorphs, going, oh yeah, that looks delicious. And I could see him influencing the marker itself or the Necromorphs and eventually taking control of it. Imagine Mark of Nurgle Necromorphs, where you have this fat guy that grabs your pee-pee thinking it's a Twinkie, and when he bites it, you immediately turn into a fat, obese Necromorph. Imagine the amount of feminists that Nurgle could create out of all the women out there with the Mark of Nurgle / Necromorph disease. I think this is actually going to be the big bad boy, where Warhammer 40k in this case would probably win, but it's because they're going to take those Necromorphs, and you're going to have these giant floating spaghetti meatballs that are the brother moons that are entirely corrupted with Nurgle. So they're going to all be toughness 5. It's going to be ridiculous. So in my opinion, I actually like that ending where Nurgle takes control of the Necromorphs and then just starts spreading this plague across everything and just destroying everything. Imagine them getting a hold of the Tyranids and the Orcs in the process. At that point, it's game over. So anyways, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll have more for you later.
Okay, well, that's interesting. He makes up some good points, though I would say the Tyranids would be incredibly resilient because, well, I mean, the Tyranids, they literally rewrite their own DNA. They take DNA from other things, then they figure out how to splice it, but I don't know if they can do that on the fly. I think they can only do that when they're creating something. Excuse me. Also, the Orcs are also, like he said, the Orcs are a bit of a wild card because the Orcs tend to do whatever the hell they want just by believing in it, you know, so it's like, what? Though, he only talked about Nurgle. I mean, there are other ones to consider, like Khorne. You know, Khorne, his guys just might just go freaking batshit nuts. And Slaanesh, oh god, don't even get me started on what the hell Slaanesh would do. Oh god, you won't even want to picture that. Seriously, I need to get some bleach and drink that and put that through my head. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, guys. Help this channel grow, guys. Let's get everybody back here to the new main channel. So, gonna have to bring them in. My old main channel is still growing. You know that? It's gained like 200 subscribers in the past couple weeks, even without any new videos. Also, don't forget to click on the link to the original down description. Get down to Commissar Gamza's channel, like his original, and sub to him. I will see you guys later. Tune in every day for new content. Bye-bye.